after today I am bringing you an easy sewing project. Now before we get into this, let me just say, first of all, sewing is not my forte. In this sewing machine in particular, I have a time with it. It doesn't like me. I can do a little better on other sewing machines, but this is the one I've got to work with, so you have to bear with me with that. Second of all, I'm not a fan of sewing. I'm not very good at it, so if I'm able to tackle this project, I have confidence that you will be able to handle it too, that this really is very simple. What we're going to be making today is some bags out of placemat. So this is one I made years ago. Super basic, super cute, super simple. And I'm going to show you how I made one like this. And this was obviously a little wrinkled and a little dirty from use. But you can also use the same technique to make larger bags, like if you wanted to make some reusable grocery store bags, but we'll get into that as we go through the project. As far as materials go, what you need for the body of your bag is a placemat. I've got this one here. This I got at Walmart like years ago because we were making a bunch of these, and I don't think they're too expensive. I'll check on their website to see like how much they're going for. This particular placemat is 14 inches by 19 inches, but really the dimensions aren't super important because basically we're just folding the placemat up and sewing it. Really simple. Next, you will need some ribbon for the handles. I picked up this ribbon at Walmart. Again, this is leftover from when I made these bags years ago. My ribbon is 7/8 inch wide. And this type of ribbon, I don't know if it's called gross grain or grow grain. That's how you spell it. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly or not, but just basic ribbon. You can do just a solid color, or you could use patterned ribbon that would match with your placemat, whatever you want. And lastly, we need some buttons. The buttons are optional, but it's basically just to hide where we attach the ribbon. So you can get buttons at Walmart or at your local craft store. Again, these are ones that I bought years and years ago for 62 cents. They'd probably be $1 or less for a multi-pack of buttons. And then last of all, we need to sew this. I'm gonna use a sewing machine. Of course, you could do it by hand, and you'll need, of course, you know, thread and needle and all that stuff. But all in, you can get your materials for under $5, and of course, you can buy your materials in bulk and make a whole batch of these. But it's a really simple way to make a nice sturdy bag. So I'm gonna get my sticker off of my placemat here. But the first thing we want to do is create the body of our bag out of our placemat. So here's my full placemat, and we're just going to fold it in half. And when we fold it in half, we want whatever surface is going to be our outside to be on the inside. So for me, I want this seam to be on the inside, which means this surface is the outside, so I need to fold it so the outside pieces are together. So I've got the outside surfaces of my bag facing each other. So the first thing to do is sew down each side of the folded placemat. And I'm going to use my sewing machine for this part. And hopefully I don't totally embarrass myself on camera with my pathetic sewing machine skills. As far as settings, I just got it on, a basic stitch pattern over here. And I'm gonna have it at a 3 stitch length. I personally like going with a longer stitch length because I feel like it gives me a little more wiggle room and I don't have to be as precise. And then it's easier when I inevitably have to seam rip. But obviously be careful if you're using a sewing machine, and if you need to, get an adult's help. All right, first side down, onto the second side, same process. You may also have noticed that I reverse stitched here in the beginning. I like to start beyond this thick hem here of my placemat because it's just a little easier to get the sewing machine going. Another note is I'm going to show you in a minute how we're going to deal with the bottoms. If you don't want to do the step I'm going to show you in a minute, you will want to reverse stitch at the bottom just to make it a little stronger. I'm going to be doing another stitch across here, so I'm not worrying with the reverse stitch, but if you're not going to do the step I'm going to show next, then you will want to reverse stitch this spot as well. Once you've got the one side sewn up, you're going to repeat the process on the other side of the bag. So at this point, your bag will look a little something like this, where you've just sewn down both the sides, and it's kind of like we've created a big envelope here. At this point, you have the option of either leaving it as is, where you have the square corners, and then it's kind of more of a little envelope, and you can just inside out your bag. So that's this one that I've started, hadn't finished it. I decided to just leave it square because the fabric's thicker. Or what I'm going to show you next is if you want to make it so that way your bag can kind of have a more openness to it, and kind of have a flat bottom. So if you look at this bag, we did this extra stitch here across, so it's kind of like wider and sits a little more open. I'm going to show you how I made this one kind of have the squared off bottom. If you have a placemat that's really thick, you might not want to do that, so doing the corner method just wouldn't work well because it'd be a lot of fabric to bunch up. But for a placemat like this, that's not too thick, it's really simple to do. So let me show you how we're going to create the kind of squared off corners. First of all, note my bag is still inside out in. And what we want to do is we want to kind of pucker it open along the side and come down to the bottom and fold it like this. So this is the side seam, and we're just creating this pucker kind of triangle space here. To create the squared off bottom of the bag, all we have to do is sew across this corner here. Now, with a couple tips with the corner, it helps if you get it folded up well to make sure you're really lined up. You're basically bringing this line that's the bottom edge and lining it up with this side seam. So when you do pucker it, you want to make sure that it's even on both sides. Pulling it like that. Second of all, this fabric here gets really thick and we're just gonna let it lay down kind of to the side. And last of all, if we want to make sure that both of our sides are even, we're gonna want to measure this part. So I'm going to come in an inch on both sides and then sew across that right there. So let me just mark that. So I've kind of marked it, I'm gonna sew across that right there. And the corner part can be a little bit trickier, and if you don't get it lined up right, it's not gonna be perfectly balanced, but I promise you it's okay if it's not exactly perfect. The project is fairly forgiving, and this is a good beginner, or if you're like me, a very low-skilled seamstress kind of project. So that's our first corner bottom we've created, and you can kind of see already how it's popping out. It's going to create the flat bottom, and of course it's still inside out, but we're going to repeat the process with the other corner. And again, do your best to get it lined up evenly with the other side. And I'm going to measure and mark so that way I come about the same distance on both of them. But like I said, if you don't do it perfectly, you're still going to end up okay in the end. Okay, so at this point our bag is getting close to being finished. What we want to do now is we want to put the right side out, go ahead and reverse it just to make sure everything lines up well. And here is what that last stitch did at the base. So it creates the bag kind of sit open wide, like so. There's the inside of the bag. Even if you look at mine, this isn't lined up exactly even, but it works well enough for this project. So next I'm gonna take care of these tail ends. And another thing you can do is you can cut off this inner triangle of fabric. I'm gonna take care of those and then I'll go show you how to attach the handles. So now that I've taken care of my tails, it's time to add the strap. So I have my bag inside out again, so you can see our seams. And I need to measure out 2 pieces of ribbon to be the length of my handles. And you can really make your handles however short or long you want them to be. So I'm going to make my straps be 12 inches. This doesn't have to be exact. Right about there. And of course you can make your straps however short or long you want. And then cut the second strap to matching length. And what I'm going to do now is just mark and measure where I want my handles to be. I'm going to come in 3 inches from each side. And I'm going to attach them one at a time. Like I'll attach the one and then figure out where the next one's going to go, because I just think that makes it a little easier. And what I'm going to do is just sew 2 lines across this ribbon here to hold it in place. And just make sure with this step that you only sew through one layer of your bag and you don't sew the whole thing entirely together. I'm just going to sew across and then reverse stitch back the other way. The first spot, and then same idea, do another stitch across just a little bit lower, just so it's really secure to hold our straps on. So from the inside it's going to look something like this. From the outside we will see the thread going through, but we're going to put a button to cover those, and I had a little bit of a tangle there, so that's why this one looks a little messy, but that is okay. And now I'm going to repeat the process with the other end of the strap. Just make sure when you attach your second strap that you don't have any like weird twist in your handle. Make sure that it's kind of laying smooth. And our first handle is attached. I'm going to repeat the same process on the other side with the other handle, and then we will add the buttons. Alright, so here our handles are attached, and we can inside out our bag, like put the correct side out. And our placemat bag at this point is pretty much finished. The last thing that we can do though is if we want to hide the stitchings from where we attached the handles, is we can hide them with some buttons. And I've got a bunch of different ones here, so I've got to look through and see what I've got and what I want to use. I think I want to use these big green ones here. And you've probably figured this out, but you'll need 4 buttons for one in each spot where you attached the handle. So the idea is instead of the messy stitching, we'll be able to put that and hide where we attach the handle. I'm just gonna sew this on here really quick. I'm not gonna show you like how I'm doing it because I don't really do it any technical way. If you want to like sew a button on properly, you can look, I would just search on YouTube for videos on how to sew a button, like what knots and things to do, but I'm just gonna stitch this on here really quick and then I'll show you how it turns out. And see, it hides our stitching. So I'm gonna finish attaching these buttons and then I will show you the finished bag. And here is a look at our finished bag. I love this project because it's so simple and it's also really easy to customize because first of all, you can pick whatever patterned placemat or ribbon or buttons you use. You can also change the size of it. So let's say you wanted your bag to be narrower. Well, just sew further in on one side and cut the excess off. Use the same exact process. You can of course adjust how short or long the handles are. And then one last idea I'll leave you with, if you want to use this idea to make some reusable grocery store bags, you can just start with 2 tablecloths. You know, the big rectangles, go boom, boom, and sew up the 3 sides, and then follow the same process, and you'd be able to really easily make some reusable grocery store bags without needing a lot of materials and without needing too much sewing skills. So I hope y'all enjoyed this project. If you did, don't forget to like the video and make sure if you aren't a subscriber that you subscribe to my channel. Also, there's a giveaway going on right now, so I'll put a link for that either in a card or down in the description below, so make sure you go check out the giveaway. But come back next week for another awesome tutorial. Thanks for watching and happy crafting.